Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash. This is AshQuest, and around a couple of weeks ago, I put out a video explaining that I didn't quite feel the call to sit down with a group of trusted, seasoned adventurers and play an immersive game of Dungeons and Dragons. I wasn't really able to articulate why that was fully in the video, and I can tell you now, after about 30 seconds more of thought put into it, that it's really more of a combination of things than it is any particular thing. I know that it's not quite the setting because while I am kind of tired of the same settings that are pushed throughout all of the editions of D&D, there are a large variety to choose from, and of course you can just make your own. And it might be a little bit out of the scale of the video to talk about how different things are when you make your own, because if you're making your own, then we're not really talking about D&D, we're just talking about the SRD, or the OSR, or whatever. Outside the scope of this, moving on, it's not the edition, like the current edition, or any controversy over the current business, because I've always felt like a game is always going to belong more to the players than it does the corporation. And yeah, they have the IP and the copyrights and all that crap, but they can't really control which thing you play or how you play that. They can more control like tournament settings and stuff, but I mean, we're not playing D&D in a tournament setting, although that would be hilarious. You just have tables everywhere, and there's adventuring parties at each table and a GM at each table, and the sooner the adventuring party dies, the higher in ranks the GM climbs. Or I guess you could go the other way, where like if the adventuring party wins, they move on up a tier. That's absolutely crazy to think of. It's late stage capitalism. The sub point here being, no matter what happens with the current edition, whatever that edition is, however old this video is by the time eyes are watching it, that doesn't take anything away from the previous editions. It doesn't erase the previous editions. Even if it says these rules are now going to replace this and that, none of that matters if you're not playing the current edition. It is a little bit of the rules, because I really don't want to have to spend any time at all saying, okay, you can see 15 feet in front of you because of dark sight, and because you're a dwarf, you can see an additional 20 feet. Did I place a gargoyle in the darkness 35 feet away, or 35 feet and 6 inches? And while I know that might be a silly example, and I just kind of pulled it out of nowhere, and some seasoned D&D vets might be able to come in and say that kind of scenario wouldn't happen because you count things in feats of 5, the point still stands. You just adjust the numbers accordingly. I think I'm just tired, I guess, of the subject matter. And I know that I'm kind of tired of the subject matter because no matter what kind of representations of that subject matter come out, they're all kind of the same. The video seemed to do really well, which made me happy. There were a lot of comments like, Ash, I understand what you're saying, which is kind of a miracle because I was floundering about that video like English was my third language. Still other comments were like, Ash, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. That's kind of my relationship with it too. And then they explained in more succinct terms what I was trying to get across, which is fantastic. Still other comments, which were no less valuable and no less valid, were, Ash, I don't understand what you're saying. Here's my awesome experience with D&D. Here's how many years I've put into the hobby, and here's why I think it's great. Still other comments were like, I'm not going to watch the channel anymore because you talk about AI too much. But all of this leads more into like an ongoing discussion than a typical series. And so I guess I would have to call this part 2 of the TTRPGs that I'd rather play than D&D. And there's one more point that I'd like to touch on before I begin. There were a couple of comments that were like, well, people seem to want settings and everything just handed to them. That's kind of how you get into a thing, in my opinion. That's kind of the point of all of this. If I didn't want anything just handed to me, a setting with a rule set and a theme, then I wouldn't have a wall literally covered in board games behind me. There would be no reason for any of it because I could just go get some paper and a pack of pencils and just make my own on the fly at the table. I'm not disavowing the intent behind those viewpoints. I understand those viewpoints. I don't think they were necessarily saying you shouldn't have modules, but I think that they may have missed maybe the intent of the point that I was making. And maybe not, maybe they nailed it. And I really do think that it's fine to have a system come out that it has clear and concise rules and an adventure for you to play so that you can really get your feet wet. To that end, I would like to introduce you to the second TTRPG, or maybe the first real TTRPG here in this series. And for that, we're going to have to go over to the gaming table. So I only have the one camera today. We're gonna take you I'm sorry, this is going to be slightly inappropriate. I gotta lift you up here, just under your shoulders. All right, you're heavy. No, that's not a crack about your weight. Your weight's fine. Okay, last time we tried this, you backflipped and hurt yourself. I'm gonna gently flip you over myself. Welcome to the part of the video that you got to if you skipped all of the intro stuff. This is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the starter set. This was actually available at a pretty good price at my not so local, but still very friendly game store. Here is the specific UPC for it, but essentially the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set contains everything needed to bring the Warhammer world to life. Whether playing for the first time or preparing for your next epic campaign, this box set is the perfect starting point for anyone interested in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Now, to kind of touch on a point I made earlier in the video, I really love the Warhammer Fantasy universe. And I think it's fine to want something like this, pre-themed, pre-packaged, something I didn't have to create, because let's face it, there are universes out there that are better than the ones that you might create in the eyes of some of your players. I can't create anything like the Warhammer Fantasy universe. I can create stuff that's completely different from it and yet still really cool to me. In writing Rewonderland, I built myself an entire world. I have plans for the entire planet of that world. I could create a TTRPG of that world if I wanted to. And I think that it could be something really special, really awesome, and maybe even unique if you can believe that. But more often than not, I'm going to be in the mood to play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set, not the universe that I made. Does that make sense? So let's take our first steps into a grim world of perilous adventure and see what all comes with the starter set, which I think was around $20, but it might have been like MSRP to $25 or $30. It says $39.99 on the box, but I don't think anybody is going to charge this much for it. The adventure book included herein invites players of all experience levels into the rich role-playing playground of Ubersreich. For beginners, an introductory adventure teaches the rules as you play. For experienced hands, there are another 10 scenarios aimed to expand your WFRP games, offering new locations, new characters, and new horrors to uncover. Accompanying this, a guide to Ubersreich highlights the bloody history and recent invasion of Ubersreich. It also examines more than 70 locations in the troubled town, details the surrounding fiefdoms, and introduces a wide array of dark cults plaguing the area. This is going to come with a read this first introduction sheet, 6 ready-made characters, the adventure book, a guide to Ubersreich, 3 rules reference sheets, 3 handout sheets, 49 advantage tokens, 4 highly detailed maps, 2 custom dice, and a simple game master screen. It's time for a new chapter of unforgettable adventure. Love how that starts, love the artwork, love the old world, love the grim dark world of Warhammer. Let's begin. Is this the GM's? I think this is meant to be the GM screen, the lid of the box. It doesn't really stand on its own. And here are our advantage tokens. Yeah, they want to pop out. We've got different colors here, skulls with blue, purple, white, green, and teal, and red ribbons. I really like the dice that were included with this. We have 2 lovely dice, both 10-sided. One is 0 through 9, and the other is 00 through 90, incremented in 10s. And together, these make up the D100. I rolled a 40 and a 1, so that's 41. The 000 comes after 90 and 9. There's an 81, and there is a 10-4, so 14. Probably be struggling a little bit telling my brain that that's not a 40 because it's 4 10s, but that's a me problem. 98. Oh, they're a lot of fun to roll. I really like the motif here on each face around the numbers, framing them. A skull with a cross and 2 laurels. Yeah, that's highly thematic and super cool to see. Although it looks like some of the mold itself wasn't deep enough to carry any paint on at least one face, but you can't have perfection all the time, I guess. Emptying out the contents, the bottom of the bottom part of the box has got a leaflet for Warhammer 2 Vermintide. I love seeing that because it is relevant, in my opinion. It is related. And then we've got this additional map, which includes the Grey Mountains, Karak, Asgaraz, Altdorf. Beautiful, beautiful presentation. Nothing was wasted in this. Vermintide 2. It's a good game. It was recently offered for free. Prepare to enter a grim world of perilous adventure. Read this first. What's on the back? We've got lore. Lore, if you want to enter a grim world of bitter heroes and perilous struggles. Listen to lost and damned souls scream in anguished terror as chaos infects all like a malignant disease, from which there is no cure. What is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay? Well, you and your friends will be playing the role of characters living in the Empire, the greatest realm of the old world. You will encounter enemies aplenty, and some allies too, as you foil the plans of those who seek the end of all things. But heroes in WFRP rarely start out that way. Fate and circumstance will force you to make difficult choices, and in WFRP, even the good guys sometimes do bad things. You'll find everything you need to start playing WFRP in here. Most of the characters will take the role of a character by choosing one of the ready-made characters included in the box. On each character sheet, you will find details of who the character is, what possessions they have, and what they can do. Once you have picked your character, you will decide everything they say and do, describing their actions as they attempt to complete the adventure and emerge victorious or at least alive. We've got our players around the table here. We do need a GM for this. We do get started by checking out the adventure book so you can play right away. And then we have a little bit of sidelines explaining all of the stuff that comes in the box, but we're going to take a look at that much more up close and personal. Next up is the character sheets. These are the pre-baked characters, ready for people to just select, no thoughts required. We have Elsa Sigloben, the human witch hunter, Amris Emberfell, the high elf merchant. I'll hear no ill words on this practice because I think it's a fantastic idea to have these pre-baked characters so that people can really jump in if they are truly beginners to all of this, instead of having somebody just info dump all the different jobs and classes and races and all of that they can have, and the myriad of different spells and schools of magic and all of that. Just choose a pre-made character that speaks to you, let them get utterly wrecked, or perhaps get into the spirit of role-playing, and you can quickly see if this game is for you and if you are for this game. Ferdinand Gruber, the human wizard. Molrella Brandysnap, the halfling thief. They always give the thief roles to the halfling. Gunnar Hrolfsson, the dwarf slayer. And there is a space between these two words, so he's a slayer. He's not a dwarf slayer slaying other dwarves. That would be wild. Then Salandra von Drakenberg, the human soldier. I think I love this one probably more than all of the other ones. I love the bard-like appearance. I also just have a thing for huge hats. Don't get me wrong, Elsa Sigloben is pretty awesome too. In opening your pre-made character, you will see quotations. In the case of Elsa, "In the name of Sigmar, you are found wanting." What? No, I wasn't looking at Amris. I will serve the Empire as my mother did before me. Sigmar, preserve us! Elsa is dedicated to Sigmar, nothing else. Her mother was a witch hunter and instilled in her the importance of the work firsthand. Elsa will never forget the burnings she witnessed as a child or the screams. She'll do anything to avoid a world where those screams are commonplace. So she burns the weak to preserve the Empire, because Elsa is dedicated to Sigmar. Nothing else. So what is she like? Quiet, dedicated, and iron-willed. Why play Elsa? Elsa shoots her way out of most problems, bellowing to Sigmar, god of the Empire, as she does so. If you want to play a strong-willed character who does not back down, but does use her expensive pistols to resolve most situations in Sigmar's good name, are a very strong all-rounder with potentially complicated emotional depth. Do not look inside this character sheet unless you are the GM, or you are definitely going to play Elsa. There are secrets within. I actually never read this section before, so I'm glad I went through now. We'll check out a couple of features of the other ones before we open up one of these character sheets. You live there? In that den? My, you're very brave. What's Kothic like? Calithar, well, it's less disordered. But that building was built just 10 years ago. Caladorianithis Shinthia. Amris's father is a merchant prince of Kothic, and he wants Amris to follow in his footsteps, but Amris has absolutely no desire to do this at all. Amris is an elf with a sharp mind and a mysterious past. Young, naive, and ferociously intelligent. Play him if you want to play something quite different and quite alien from the rest of the party. You like the idea of an all-round capable character that relies less on luck and rerolls and more on skill. And if you like elves, which this is really an important point that should be kind of at the top. If you like elves, you can play this character. If you don't, you're not going to want to. That's that. Ferdinand Gruber has some really thought-provoking, deep quotations, such as silence and die. Dour, loyal, and often sarcastic. Gruber is the oldest son of the Baron of Weisbruck, but as he's a wizard, he cannot legally inherit, meaning his wastrel younger brother, Bartolini, is now the baronet. Most citizens of the Empire fear him, which means most citizens, if the Empire, fear him. Shame on you, Games Workshop, that's a typo. Play him because you're not too comfortable role-playing and would like to play a relatively quiet character. Ferdinand is really cool under pressure and can handle most adventures with aplomb, and most importantly, Ferdinand has magic. He can make things go boom. Molrella Brandy Snap, that is. Look, I understand, but my hugs are healing, just you see. I didn't nick it, I just lifted it after someone left it behind. Who are you calling a child? I've been married and had kids. Take that, you lanky git. Raised in a single room with her large extended family, Molly's happy, gregarious, fun to be around, and utterly confused by human morality and concepts of ownership. This lands her in a lot of trouble, frequently. But me winning smile will see me through. Caught by Salandra trying to steal her horse 4 years ago, it was a long story, Molly has been hanging around the young soldier ever since. Molly and Sally are very close, but then Molly is close to everybody. We'll get over Salandra here shortly. She's utterly joyful, irrepressible, and blithe. Molly is just lovely, a ray of golden sunshine in an otherwise grim and perilous world. Play her because you like the idea of being a free living, happy halfling without a care in the world. Her lockpicking, charm, and intuition can get her into and out of most situations, and every group needs a peacemaker and a hugger. Next up we have Gunnar Hrolfsson. Grimnir's beard. Not worth the risk. I want an honorable death. He's angry, troubled, and belligerent. You can play him if you're a strong, tough, resilient, and quite fearless, or if you want to be, and he is desperate to find an enemy worthy of him. As a slayer on a quest to clear a stain on his honor, many give him a wide berth. Gunnar is easily the toughest character, but does lack armor, so be careful. Another one, toughest. It says toughest. He's the toughest dwarf of them all. Gunnar is a very honorable dwarf. Oh, they even typoed his name. Oh, this is a shame, Games Workshop. Come on. Gunnar. Come on, GW. It's not like it really matters, but still, it's fun to point these out. All he believes. Hold on. Gunnar is a very honorable dwarf. For all he believes, he has lost all his honor, making him fun to play. That's worded strange. Finally, we've got Sally. Don't worry, we will fix this. For Drakenberg! Salandra is the rebellious daughter of the influential Duke von Drakenberg. She was raised in the military and now seeks her own fortune. She has a matter-of-fact, no-nonsense attitude that disappears entirely when she drinks and reverts to the unruly soldier of her youth. Called Sally by her friends, she lets few know her, fearing betrayal, but bonds for life with those she befriends. She's the natural leader of the party and has several significant advantages, including being a noble. She can access parts of the Uberschreik society other characters are denied. Having trained with a sword since she was strong enough to carry one, she is very skilled in melee combat, and she has a strong sense of right and wrong, and works hard to do what she feels is the right thing. I think we should take a look at Salandra von Drakenberg's character sheet before we continue. So we'll open this up and see some anatomy of this thing. We have the character sheet explanation here, and kind of the meat at what this game does to help you roleplay situations and get through things like combat. There are tests, characteristics, and skills, and fate and fortune play into this. Characteristics and skills are used in tests to see if succeed or fail at unsure tasks. Skills here are for Salandra. Well, rather the scores here are for Salandra. Everybody has this set of skills. She has a 43 in athletics. This includes running, jumping, and hefting. A 28 in charm. A 46 in charm, animal, and others. There's even skills here like consume alcohol and gossip. Knowing things about Reichland is the lore skill with which she has 40. I feel like she should have more. Actually, I think the lower the score, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, her ride is 33. Ride a horse. Ride. I'm pretty sure the lower the score, the more of a chance you have, because I think you have to roll to match or exceed the score in order to succeed a test. You can usually tell pretty quick which way the dice have to go when you look at skill sheets like this one. So you can become incapacitated instead of being killed by permanently spending what they call fate points. A fate point will help you with this, ensuring you survive the rest of the combat. You can also spend a fate point to avoid all damage from one source, or choose a 1d100 result for one of your tests, even after rolling. This will also automatically win an opposed test if you are in one by a minimum of +1 SL. So you can choose exactly what the dice will say by spending a fate point, but you do so by spending one permanently. You can spend a fortune point to reroll a failed test or add +1 SL or skill level to a test after it's rolled. Choose when to act in a round regardless of initiative order. Remove one condition from which your character currently suffers. Ignore the fear trait and not be afraid. Ignore the negative modifiers of any critical wound for 1 round. So it's like adrenaline. You lose wounds when hurt. Refer to the injury reference sheet for more. They really just skipped the QA on this starter set, didn't they? And in peeking at some of the other character sheets, the exact same mistake was made there. They just put this in here twice. Corruption shows how corrupt your soul is becoming. These are your special capabilities here, talents. The description explains what they do. Armor points and weapons are used in combat to resist damage or harm enemies. Trappings, these are the items your character is carrying and any rules they may have. Here we have the armor points for each of the locations on a character's body, because you can target specific spots of a character's body. We have the starting fate, fortune, and wounds, and of course you start with no corruption. You have characteristics such as weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, I think intelligence, agility, dexterity. Oh, no, that's not intelligence. That's intelligence. That might be initiative and FEL. Then you have a little bit of character background for this character, although you could probably modify any of this stuff here to replace with your own, just using the character as a template if you're able to kind of create a character or use the baked characters either way. She's 23, she's 6'2", she has dark brown hair, olive eyes, and tanned skin. Her mother is Duchess Anya von Drakenberg, father Duke Konstantin von Drakenberg. She's got 2 siblings, no partners, and is from Reichland. You can select which group ties you want, at least one, and that will determine how you wish your Salandra to act. We've got all of these different insinuations here that will link you to the other 5 characters if you so choose, as applicable, of course. And you have secrets. Select one, some, or all of the following secrets. For each one you choose, you begin with the game. You begin with game with an extra 1d10 silver shillings. I'm starting to get legitimately annoyed, Games Workshop. You begin with game. You have fought chaos, but not escaped untainted. Gain +3 corruption. You are a drunk. You must pass a cool test not to drink when the option arises. You've an illegitimate child of 6 being raised by the father, Graf Jungfreud. You hate lawyers and will not engage with them without passing a cool test. You are paid to keep Amherst away from his father by a secretive third party. And you can begin the game, of course, with 1d10 silver shillings. In addition, you gain an extra 1d10 shillings for every secret you have selected. You've got a purse here with gold, silver, and brass. And that's pretty much the character sheet in a nutshell. Let's move on to the adventure book, A Grim World of Perilous Adventure. We have the table references in the back for the critical wound and dramatic test outcomes. Welcome to the adventure book. Making the Rounds is intended to be the first adventure the GM reads in the WFRP starter set. It offers an introduction to the troubled streets of Uberstreik, a fortress town in the Empire. It also presents the rules of the game in an easily understood sections. Whoops, that was on me. I inserted an identifier. It presents the rules of the game in easily understood sections, so is the perfect introduction to the game. These rules are presented in boxes at the bottom of the book, much like the Tricks of the Trade, How to Be the GM box below. This makes them easy for reference and ensures they don't get lost in the text of the adventure. So just like with most starter sets in TTRPGs and any good TTRPG that comes in a complete set that has its own sort of incorporated starting materials, the Tricks of the Trade here kind of teaches you how to be the GM and pretty much assumes that as the purchaser of the game, the reader of this book, you're going to be the one who is the GM. We have simple tests, we have difficulty, we have dramatic tests, we have opposed tests. Dramatic tests pretty much in how well a task is performed. You will roll the D100 to determine if a test is a success or a failure, then subtract the test. Subtract the tens number of the 1D100 roll. My goodness. My mouth does not want to explain that section, so I will just roll that back. Once everyone is settled and ready to play, read the following to set the scene. I'm not going to read the following, but you will now give them a handout. It's strange that you're giving them handout 8, which is called Going Shopping, rather than handout 1. But maybe this is a good point to break off from the books and see what other materials come with the game. The combat reference sheet here explains initiative, turns and rounds, advantage, fighting, and the opposite side gives you a critical wound table and explains critical wounds and wounds. They are separate. This next sheet is the conditions reference sheet. This uses various conditions to cover commonly encountered penalties that you may face. Each condition has its own special rules, such as prone, stunned, fatigued, unconscious, broken, bleeding, ablaze. You can gain conditions, you can remove conditions. The introduction to Uberstreik and the Empire includes sections such as the Reichland, gods, enemies, magic. In this universe, Sigmar, patron and founder of the Empire, is worshipped as a god. The other important gods to the Reichland here include Ulrich, the god of winter and war, his brother Tal, god of the hunt, Raya, Tal's wife, the goddess of summer and fertility, Shalia, goddess of peace and mercy, her father Mor, the god of death, and his wife Verena, the goddess of wisdom and justice. It explains enemies, magic, and daily life in the Reichland. It's a good arrangement of information, I think, for people who are unfamiliar with the Warhammer Fantasy universe. This is the tests reference sheet. This explains that most tests, let's try this again, are simple tests. These tell you if you succeed or fail. Roll 1d100, and if the result is less than or equal to your skill or characteristic, you succeed. So I was right about that. Otherwise, you fail. Failing can mean things simply take longer, not that the attempt is completely fruitless, as the GM decides. Some tests are more difficult than others. Climbing a sheer wall is much harder than climbing a tree. To simulate this, the GM can assign a difficulty to any test. This will either add a positive bonus or a negative penalty, making the test easier or harder to pass. And these are modifiers, so if you want to add the very easy difficulty level to the test, which is a plus 60, then you will actually combine that with the test itself. So it'll add an additional 60 directly to the tested skill. Obviously, these numbers change as you go up in difficulty language. Challenging is just 0. Difficult is -10, hard -20, or very hard -30. Outcomes include an astounding success. Yes, perfectly. You achieved your goals perfectly. All the way down to astounding failure. No, not in any way. You have not succeeded. You could not have performed worse and have made matters much worse. I continue to love the art that is provided in these Games Workshop publications. They do a brilliant job of illustrating what the lands of Sigmar's worshippers and their detractors are really like. Looks like we're going to get into a fight here in the intro to all of this. We've got a round 1, statistics for the Brawling Horde, as well as traits. It looks like if you want to create your own encounters, this is pretty much the work you're going to have to put into it, but you could use this as a template to refine the kinds of encounters that you'll put into your homespun games. Pulling your blows here, whenever characters pass a test and roll a double, like 22, 33, 44, 55, and so on in combat, they score a critical hit. For this first combat, you can ignore this rule as the Brawling Horde is pulling its blows, meaning the mob is not actively trying to kill anyone. However, if any of the characters wish to seriously harm the riders, let them use the critical hit rules as normal. Round 2 onwards, we can talk about law and order. This is actually part 2 of this quest. It's off to court for our adventuring party, lawyering up, and we have a lawyer character named Osana Winandis, a well-respected barrister in her 30s. So our characters are going to get into trouble with the law. Love that. And after your lawyer pleads your case, bam, you are sentenced to community service. You're in the watch now. And you'll meet a couple of other characters, some nice, some not so savory. At least it seems that way. Troubled Town, the Prisoner and the Warden. And those are the last 2 sections of this introductory adventures. That was making the rounds. At the end of every session, you normally receive experience points between 75 and 125 for taking part and accomplishing feats throughout the adventure. This XP can be spent on skills, talents, and characteristics, advances found in a character's career profile. To learn more about this, pick up a copy of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and download the full character sheets for the pre-generated characters from www.cubicle7.co.uk. Well, okay then. We've got more adventures in Überstrike. These are 10 scenarios designed for more experienced WFRP players to be used as standalone adventures. This section is not big at all, which means you can pretty much make a good scenario with just a little bit of content. The Hassle of Johann Hoffman is our first one, followed by Red Moon Burning. Then we've got The Littlest Wa. Blood and Snow. That sounds like the George R.R. Martin's next book. No, he'd have like some sort of verb attached to it. An Adventure of Blood and Snow or something. The Riddle of Silver. This does not appear to have any references to Conan. Memories of Blood, 2 Wrongs Make a Right. Old Blue Eyes is back. Unions and Reunions. And finally, Ash in the Wind. Me in the Wind? We've got NPC traits here, a very useful glossary. Dark Vision. Not Dark Vision again. It just says the NPC can see in the dark as if it were daylight, so we don't have any annoying distances to keep track of. Bite, Blessed, and Magical Mutation, Chill Grasp, Bastille, Doppelganger. Detailed mutations, which are absolutely fascinating if you are into the entire chaos portion of all of this, which it's kind of unavoidable, I would think. A clutch of eyes. Roll a 1d100 to determine a hit location where your new eyes push out. You can now see from that hit location. Oh, that's great. I hate it. Looks like you can get tentacles as well. That's the adventure book. Next up, we have a thicker book, the Guide to Überstrike. And this one has a ton of lore. It's got a timeline of Überstrike's history. Überstrike today. The book presumes the year is 2512 IC. Then we have a visitor's guide to Überstrike. This gives you the Artisan's Quarters, the Carpenter's Guild, the Locksmith's Guild, the Whiting Rookery, the Wizard's Way, Black Rock with Black Rock Castle, St. Arnold's Chapel, the Worshipful Guild of Cutlers. Then we have characters like Sister Haberkorn and Wendelin von Jungfreud. Bauihafen, Teobroke, the Docks, the Customs House, there's a taxing situation, the Red Moon Inn, the Ruggers Boarding House, the Eel, the Baron, the Exploding Pig, Wallen's Ratcatchers, Morgan's Sight. It goes on to make sure that you understand the world here and all of the references so that you can use this book to give your players an immersive experience. We have references to different enemies here, references. Now I'm typoing. I've been typoing this entire time. The Skaven Gutter Runner, because of course Skaven are in this universe. The Skaven Giant Rat Swarm. Now that's not fair. They're just rats, right? Yeah, they're just common rats, but the Skaven make use of their presence, hurting them in great swarms, directing them to attack their foes. Brant, the Doppelganger. Beyond the Walls, we have the Flesh Market, Gross the Tin Spur, the Barony of Ladies Vale in the province of Ubersreich, the County of Widow's Vale, the Duchies of Grauwerk and Karstadt. We have dark cults, so we of course have the cults who are dedicated to the Chaos Gods, Khorne, Nurgle, Slanesh, and Tzeentch, and there are multiple cults in each of these inclinations. There are also other cults such as the Yellow Bellies, the Horned Rat being the god of entropy and schemes worshipped by the chittering hordes of clandestine ratmen called the Skaven, and the Faceless Ones, who answer as weak-willed and unwary, a cult serving their Dark Master's wishes, their Dark Master being none other than Constant Drachenfels. That's more or less the guide to Ubersreich. Here we have the handouts that were mentioned earlier. I don't want to have to cut these up, but it seems like that's kind of the intent here. We have 6 handouts and nothing on the opposite sides. Handout 7 is going shopping and nothing on the opposite side of that. Then we have different maps here with different purposes of the town of Ubersreich. This one seemingly more thematic, this one a lot more Atlas-like. Where are you? What do the numbers represent? The 10 here in the Artisan's Quarter would be Satrioli's Sausage Shop. Of course, that would be the one that I land on. Let's go all the way to 19 in Dawihafen, which I assume is the district of dwarves. We've made it to Harataken Hold. And then finally, let's go to the precinct. Let's go to 62. That is the Chapel of Ulrich. On the opposite sides, we have maps that project the Duchy of Ubersreich and surrounds. This is a map for the Game Master. And then another map, it's the same place, but a different context. This time, this one shows you kind of what lands belong to which rulers. Where are the geopolitical borders, in other words. Scales make for handy references, so you know how long it takes to travel between places, and that is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay's starter set. So who's coming over tonight to play some Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay? I will gladly get involved with this. My character, who am I playing as? I'd play a character who would claim to have been bitten by none other than Genevieve the Vampire. I'd have to do a little bit more studying, I think, to see what kind of thralls would come from that. But as far as I know, the everything is canon aspect of Warhammer, or is that only 40k, would lead me to argue that any type of vampire at all can exist in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay universe, because the vampire Genevieve explains that there are many, many different kinds of vampires, and they hold all kinds of different places in society, in private, in public. Their appearances range wildly from still looking like they did the day that they were bitten, to being almost completely creature-like. My character would be just like me, obsessed with Genevieve. And I hope that you enjoyed this presentation of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. We will continue our journey to find more role-playing games that I would rather play than Dungeons & Dragons. A lot of you had fantastic suggestions for such games, and they were not wasted on me. Although a lot of them are going to take time to acquire. Running this channel is not free. To that end, join the Patreon or become a YouTube member. Throw a couple of extra bucks at me if you want. Or don't, I don't care. It's all going to come at some point, maybe, anyway? Big maybe. Brave Heroes, thank you so much for your kind attention. Please make sure to comment whatever you'd like down below, and I will see you in the next exciting adventure. Until then, onward for now.